Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello everyone. Today I want to share with you these cards that I've made. I've made these 3 cards, this green one, the red one and the blue one, and I made them using a new die that I got. This is a Simon Says stamp joyful die, and when you get it, it comes in this envelope and you have 2 dies inside. Now they were clipped together and they just literally break apart. So one gives you the backing and then the other one gives you the letters and the thin little frame. Now I've used this stamp set. This is a stamp set I got free in a magazine, and it's Crafts Beautiful magazine, and I got it last year. There's some fantastic stamps in this set. I'm going to try and link everything that I can below in the description. And if there's anything that I haven't been able to get or forgot to put on, just leave a message in the comment section and I'll have a look for you. I'm going to be using Distress Oxide, and that's what's going to give us the shadow around the edge of our coloured cardstock. And I'm using a little blender brush to put that on. I'll be using the VersaFine Onyx black ink for my sentiment, which will be inside, and the sentiment is from that stamp set, as well as those little snowflakes. I was going to say stars, they're snowflakes, guys. I've also used the Christmas tree that came in that stamp set for the front of the card. So let's go ahead and make our card. My card base is a 5x7 card base, but if you're making your own, you need a piece of card measuring 10x7 and score it at 5, and that'll give you the card base for this. Now the matte layer, the layer with the Christmas trees on it, is a little bit smaller. I like to have a white border. So this piece of purple card measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Then this was an off piece, an off cut, and it's 2.5 by roughly 6 inches. And this is what I'm going to use to die cut out our joyful and the background. So the joyful letters and the very thin frame I'm going to cut out of this gold cardstock. So we'll have our purple matte layer with our Christmas trees and snowflakes, and then we'll have the joyful in the same colored cardstock and the gold. I'll be using the Versamark ink, that's our sticky ink, for doing our embossing, and these are some of the stamps, as I said, from that stamp set I'll be using. I'll also be using my embossing buddy. I couldn't think of it there for a minute. You can use the EK Success tool, but I find for a big area like this, you're as well off with this little pillow. So when we use our fingers, and you'll see here I've paused the image, we have oils on our fingers, and if we put embossing powder on paper after touching it with our fingers, the embossing powder will stick to that, and that's why we use an embossing buddy, or it's like talc, so that when we put our sticky ink on our stamp and then stamp down, the only thing that's going to stick to the card on our embossing powder will be our sticky ink. Now you would have seen I got a little bit of washi tape and folded it over and stuck that behind my purple page. That's so that the page wouldn't move and I could just press down with my stamp and lift up. So I started with the center of the card and put my little tree down there, and then I worked around that. Now I'm going to move on to my little snowflake and fill in some of the spaces around there. I didn't use as many snowflakes as I did with the other 3 cards, but I thought this was enough. I was just showing you there that the inside lid of my embossing holders, my embossing powder holders or Tupperware, I have one of those little clips so my spoon can clip onto it. So now, although I was touching the card with my fingers there, I made sure and just held it where my tweezers are there. Guys, you've got to love what happens when you use a heat tool on an embossing powder. The way it goes from this really dull sandy grains to this fabulous gold. And you just keep an eye, you'll see if there's any dull patches where the powder hasn't gone to the liquid, you'll be able to see there's a bit there at the top right, another bit there, and a bit on the snowflake. And you can just, by putting it to the light, you can see where you might have missed out. So my heat tool was good and hot before I brought it to my paper. If you let it heat up off to the side for at least 15 to 20 seconds, you'll get less warping. So now I've got my Distress Oxide, and I didn't mention what color it is. It's Black Soot is what I'm using. And with these little makeup brushes, and they're just a generic cheap as chips brushes, and they work perfect, guys. I'm just going to do around the outside. Now I clean mine using a baby wipe and then a dry cloth, and that gets it off. I didn't clean it properly because I knew I'd be using that for my little joyful sentiment. I've got a cloth there, and what I'm doing is wiping off the black soot ink from on my gold Christmas trees, and just, you know, making sure it's nice and tidy. I've got a lovely little gold marker here, and I'm just filling in some of the empty space, putting little dots. So here we have our joyful die cuts, and what I'm going to do is I've left the die cut with the joyful and the little frame all together, but I'm only going to put tiny little dots of Nuvo Glue around the frame as well as the letters. Then I'll put the whole lot down onto my little backing purple piece of card and press down on the little frame, and then lift up the solid piece. And as I lift the solid piece up, I'm pressing down on each of the letters so that they'll stick to the purple card. And then I just lifted out the center of the O, and I'm going to keep them, guys. I'm going to make cards using that. So it'll be the opposite of what you see here under my finger. So with the residue of ink that was left on my little brush, I'm just going around the edge of my joyful. And then again, I'm cleaning off the gold card, little frame and letters to make sure that they shine bright. I've got some 3M Scotch foam tape, and I'm going to put some of those behind the sentiment just to lift it up off the card. And because it's lifted, it gives the appearance of a shadow from underneath it. Now we did warp some of our card base with our trees on it, so you can see here I'm putting plenty of double-sided tape. Now you can use glue, you can use a tape roller. I just happen to have this tape in my stash. First thing I reached for, and I'm going to stick that down. You might have noticed there that I only peeled the release paper off the top half of the tape, double-sided tape, and that's so that I could place down my Christmas trees, make sure that they were nicely centered on my card base, and then take out the release paper. So you can put the joyful anywhere you want. I happen to have it more or less in the middle. And all we've left to do now is our sentiment. So I'm using the VersaFine Onyx black ink, and you could do this before you put the front, you know, down. You could use your stamping platform, but I was pretty happy with the result I got. This stamp tends to stamp really well, so I wasn't worried that I would, you know, it wouldn't stamp well. So I'm stamping on my snowflakes, and the last three I've used some Paper Mania gold ink. It doesn't give great coverage, but it kind of ties the front and the back together. I've also got a little stamp with my logo on it, and again I'm going to use the gold ink for that. I always put them on my cards now. So that's it, that's the card we've made together, and here are the other three that I made. I'm going to leave you with some images of the cards. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for watching. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing, and if not, you might consider clicking on the subscribe icon down below, and don't forget to hit the bell for more notifications. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Until next time, bye for now.